This is Peter Laws in Norman, Oklahoma. On the air since 1987, you're tuned to the International Radio Report, 30 minutes of radio about radio every Sunday morning on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and live streaming around the globe at ckut.ca.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. It is Sunday, September the 12th, 2021. We thank you for joining us. You can reach us by email, radioreport@yahoo.com. We're live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group is International Radio Report. We welcome two new members this week, Nirmal and Raphael. Thank you for joining us. And our YouTube channel, where you can check out the latest show and previous editions of our program, youtube.com/International Radio Report. And our numbers jumped up quite nicely this week. We're up to 444 subscribers there as well. My name's Sheldon. Gilles is with me, and we have quite a bit of information from around the world for you today, including some local Montreal information for our local listeners, as the ratings have come out for the summer period. Summer is always an interesting ratings period. Usually it doesn't mean a whole lot for radio stations. They tend to have a lot of people on vacation. Some programming is being done by new people or temporary people, interns even in some cases. So they don't generally put a lot of emphasis on the numbers of the summer period, but there are some interesting things this summer that have been going on, and I'm sure the analysts will be looking at that. So we're not going to go into great detail on them, but we've pointed out a few interesting things, and we thank a couple people who we'll recognize as we go along, who sent in a few little notes as well that I find are kind of interesting. And Gilles, you managed to find some coverage in the French press as well.
Yeah, there's an interesting story that came out in La Presse that talks about the two dominant news talk station pretty much here in the French language side of radio. And of course, 98.5 is the station that is the most popular. It's been dominating in the news market and the talk radio in French. But they have been actually losing some ground. So they went from 22.1% to 18.7% of the time that people listen to the radio. And at the same time, the CBC, Ici Première, which is the French language CBC, has gone up. And at 15.1%, that actually makes a difference that's very small, 3.6% between both. So it seems the CBC French is actually catching up to the 98.5 station. They've been actually saying that for the summer listening, it is pretty crazy the amount of people listening to the talk stations, because usually it's the music stations that dominate while you're on vacation, listening to your favorite music, by the pool or whatever. But this summer, it's the talk stations that are dominating still.
Yeah, that's really quite interesting. I'm not sure what might be sort of sparking that. COVID certainly is still a major issue that people are probably looking for news and information on. I don't know if, we know in the States that news talk radio stations or talk stations tend to be politically aligned. They're either a Republican station or a Democrat station. I don't know if that exists in Quebec here with the talk stations.
I'm not sure. I don't listen to 98.5. And I barely listen to the CBC in French. It'd be interesting, maybe as an experiment, to do so, because maybe there is some slight difference. There's some difference in opinion. I can see that the sounding of what they talk about, the way they talk about it, it is slightly different. It's noticeable. But to what extent people talking more on a certain side of the news and the CBC is more neutral, or I don't know. That'd be interesting to maybe as an experiment to listen to and look at.
Yeah, well, when you look at the ownership, of course, the CBC stations are the national network across the country. But there's always been talk of a difference between Radio Canada, the French side of broadcasting, not just radio but television as well, versus the CBC, the rest of the country. There's been some talk about that. You look at CHMP 98.5, and that's owned by a Quebec-based company,
Yep.
Cogeco. So maybe, it would be an interest. I've never heard anybody really talk about it, but it's certainly something that's prevalent in the U.S. And whether there's any signs of that here, I don't know. Be interesting. But the numbers are getting close. Numeris, who produces the official ratings for the period, they have the percentage of the share of the overall audience at 19.2% for 98.5 and 15.3 for the Radio Canada station. So pretty close there. And they, as you said, they did have quite a dominant lead. The only other thing I noticed on the French side that was kind of interesting is CHOM, and that's always sort of an anomaly there, an English radio station that always seems to get a chunk of the Francophone listeners.
Yeah, definitely.
And this time they have 5.2% of share of the Franco market, but Cité FM has gone up to 6.8% of the share of Anglophone listenership. So that's kind of interesting as well. The other stations have pretty much held where they are. Sequoia is 11.1, CFGL 12.6. So yeah, the others, there's really not a lot of difference at this point, but there are those couple things, and for the La Presse to put out an article like that is something they don't often comment on the ratings.
Nope.
So that's indicative of something going on there. On the English side of things, there's a few interesting things going on. The CBC is making big inroads again with their CBC Radio 1 88.5. They have now surpassed in share CJFM, which is Virgin Radio. At least we think it's still Virgin Radio because there's some news about that, which we'll give you in a moment. Yep. CJD still dominates the Anglo market, though, 29.1 share, which is just crazy numbers.
Really far ahead.
Yeah. The Beat at 15.7, which is certainly beating Virgin Radio. 9.8 this time for them. It's interesting. CHOM is doing well, 13.7. Really the only solid rock music station we have in Montreal. So,
and that station, that new station, calling themselves Weekend.
Yeah,
that is not moving much.
Hard to break into a market, I think, with something new when it's really not that much new. Anyways, it just kind of sounds like the other ones already. So
totally.
The couple little interesting items, though, one comes from Ian in our Radio in Montreal group on IO. He's noted that suddenly CJFM, which has been 95.9 Virgin Radio, has been changing the tempo of its music a little bit and is now doing something that they haven't done for as long as I can remember. They are IDing their station by their call letters. They're saying CJFM Montreal, an iHeart radio station, every hour. And we just checked it, actually.
We just checked it, yes.
And sure enough, the old CJFM call letters are being heard on the radio again, which is really kind of weird in itself. So maybe there's something in the works. We didn't hear Virgin Radio mentioned in that ID, so maybe something's going to happen there.
Yeah, I think they're going to change. Something's going to happen because they need to have something that's going to happen anyways.
Yeah. The other kind of sad thing, Ian reported this as well, CHOM FM, the rock station, is now vacant, as he calls it, 7 p.m. to midnight on weekends. What vacant means, there are no DJs. And he said this is in response to other stations going what he calls jockless on weekends, including French adult contemporary stations. So they're just going automated, basically, for weekend evening periods. And cost cutting probably more than anything.
Yeah, a lot of that going on in radio.
We'll probably have some more in-depth news on the ratings numbers. Usually Steve Faggy of the Gazette and of Fagstein blog does an in-depth look at the numbers. So we'll keep our eyes open for that probably in the next week or so. So that's what's happening ratings-wise. We will put up a link where you can go and check out the other major markets across Canada because their ratings would have come out from Numeris at the same time. So we'll put a link up for that.
So we have some celebration coming soon. WBZ is to celebrate 100 years on September 19th. iHeartMedia's legendary Boston station, WBZ News Radio, which began a 100-day celebration to mark the 100th anniversary of the station's first day of broadcast, September 19th, 1921. The station will celebrate on-air and online with short stories and photos of memorable moments in WBZ's rich history. For a station to broadcast for 100 years is nothing short of amazing, says Alan Chartrand, market president at iHeartMedia Boston. Listeners and advertisers consistently utilize this heritage brand as evidenced by WBZ's continued ratings and revenue success. People lean into objective news sources to remain informed, and none has been more dependable than WBZ News Radio. WBZ News Radio is defined by our strong, unmistakable presence in the communities we serve, says Rob Sanchez, Vice President of News, Talk, and Sports for iHeartMedia Boston. As the media landscape continues to evolve, our reach has only increased as WBZ listeners have adopted streaming on smart devices and the iHeartRadio app. In a related event, WBZ's 100th anniversary commemorative special event operation is coming up. This is via the ARRL New England division. Radio station WBZ Boston celebrating 100 years anniversary in 2021. It is the oldest broadcast station in New England and one of the oldest stations in the United States. The Billerica Amateur Radio Society, along with the Hampden County Radio Association in Springfield, will be commemorating this anniversary by conducting a special operating event starting at 13 Zulu, 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, September 17th, and ending at 03:59 Zulu, September 20th, that's 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, September 19th. WBZ began operations on September 15, 1921 at the Westinghouse Works building on Page Boulevard in East Springfield, Massachusetts, broadcasting with just 100 watts. In 1931, Westinghouse moved the station to Boston. Its 15,000-watt transmitter was moved to Millis. By 1933, Westinghouse increased WBZ's power to 50,000 watts. In 1940, the transmitter was moved to Hull. The station was made famous with its slogan, "The Spirit of New England." After World War I, wireless radio grew with an increase in ham radio operators. Amateurs greatly contributed to the advance of radio arts. One of their contributions was the development of voice modulation radio signals, which used amplitude modulation, AM. WBZ first broadcast using AM 100 years ago. For their efforts, amateurs were granted permanent privileges for frequencies in the 80, 40, 20, and 10 meters shortwave bands by the International Treaty in 1927. The partnership of commercial broadcasting and amateur radio hobbyists was very beneficial to all. So amateurs using the call signs W1W, W1B, W1Z, and WB1Z will make two-way contact with other amateurs across all bands on SSB, AM, and CW and digital modes. A special QSL card will be sent to anyone who contacts one or more of the special event stations and sends a card accompanied by a self-addressed stamped envelope. The card will feature historical photos of WBZ over the years, as well as the special 100th anniversary WBZ logo. A historical sheet will also be available for download. If you're interested in operating one of the special event stations, please contact Larry Craneson, W1AST, that's at WB1DBY at Comcast.net. Seeking New England operators only at this time. That's going to be interesting to check out on the bands.
Yeah, a lot of our friends down there are members of this Billerica Radio Club, and they will be some of the operators running the station during that period. So that's going to be a really neat event to try to pick up on the bands. WBZ is heard throughout the East Coast of the U.S. I think they say something like 30 some odd states or whatever they're heard in. They're on 1030 kilohertz if you want to try to hear them for the special broadcast that'll be coming up on their station as well. So that is one of the longest running radio stations, and certainly one that's heard very well across, I'd say, probably half of the North American continent.
Yeah, definitely.
Without too much difficulty. It is a clear channel frequency, 1030, so you can give that a try. Next, we move to a story from Radio Today, and this is a note on the passing of a well-known pirate radio broadcaster. Radio Caroline's pirate Robbie Dale has died at the age of 81. Radio legend Robbie the Admiral Dale has died at the age of 81 at his home after living with dementia. He was born in Littleborough, England in April 1940. He was chief DJ on the offshore pirate radio ship Radio Caroline. Dale was one of the DJs on Radio Caroline on the 14th of August 1967, along with Johnny Walker, when the Marine Broadcasting Offences Act came into effect. At its peak, the station had 23 million listeners. After the close down of Radio Caroline, he worked for the Dutch pirate radio ship Radio Veronica from May 1968 to August 1969. He was given the nickname the Admiral by Dave Lee Travis because he reportedly liked the boat to be ship-shape, and he sometimes wore an admiral's uniform while doing his radio show. After a break from radio, he moved to Ireland to set up and run the longest-running super pirate of the 1980s, Sunshine 101, making many lifelong friends and fans along the way. Dale is a member of the Pirate Radio Hall of Fame.
This is probably the most popular, most known pirate station around the world, I would guess, Radio Caroline.
Yeah, they had such an impact in the UK, especially when pop music stations were basically non-existent, and rock music stations, and the BBC covered everything. They did their thing, and nobody else had anything going on. And so these guys got together and put that station on, and it just took over the airwaves. And it was actually them, I guess, that forced the Marine Broadcasting Offences Act to be put into place because more people were listening to them than to the BBC. So anyways, we've lost one. There are a few other Radio Caroline people that passed away in the last year or two as well. So they're all up in that age range, I guess, now. So Radio Caroline still exists now, though. It's a legal station.
It's legal now.
It has an official license.
So what is happening with the Sun? A lot of stuff is happening with the Sun. The Sun has a lot of sunspot groups right now. It really is picking up solar activity. Just to give you a number, the sunspot number count as we're creating this show is 124. And the solar flux has been above or equal to 100 for the past several days, and it really shows. One example, I got for the first time in I don't know how long, Radio Thailand 15590 at 0 UT, real strong in Montreal. That was really cool to listen to. But what comes with this is also the possibilities of solar flares and coronal mass ejections that could create some unsettled conditions. But overall, it's pretty amazing. And go to spaceweather.com and check out the pictures of the sun that is peppered with sunspots. Pretty impressive. Reminds us of the good old days of high solar activity. There's no real coronal hole right now on the sun to impact us. So we'll just ride and hope that this high activity is going to improve the bands. And the best way to do so is to turn on your radio and listen.
Hi, I'm Mickey Delmage of Sherwood Park, Alberta. Hear the latest information from the world of radio, locally and internationally, each week on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
Our next story comes from the strange radio signals category, and there's always strange things out there to tune into. This is really an interesting one. I'd never heard anything about this before, and it comes from Steve Yates of Fort Worth, Texas, reporting to Glenn Hauser's World of Radio, and he headlines his story, Beacon of Hate. He goes on to say, over 21 years ago in 2000, I started receiving a mysterious CW beacon in slow Morse code on or about 10106.4 kilohertz. So that's 10106.4 kilohertz. There has even been at least one YouTube video someone created describing its weirdness using my reception reports at the time. It has been over 20 years since I last heard it. Last night, though, I began hearing it again after 20 years. It could have had significant meaning to someone, or it was simply a prank. The 30-meter band is shared with commercial and military users throughout the world, but I can't think of any legitimate purpose for this signal, particularly when the message content is considered. If the message were directed to someone real, I really would have expected some sort of encryption to have been used. It is for this reason that I believe the messages were meant to simply play with our minds. I'm curious as to why anyone would devote transmitting equipment for so long to such a small audience. Except for pages such as this one, how would this person even know what was the response to his messages? Even when I told people about the beacon, they found it very difficult, if not impossible, to find it. I first detected it again at 0207 UTC on the 4th of September. The exact frequency was 10106.36 megahertz. I didn't hear it again for over 9 hours, perhaps due to propagation. He goes on to say, first heard September 4th at 0207, and the message is sometimes kind of broken CW. It's not always perfectly clear, but the one message that he did get that did seem to come out quite clear reads, false God of Israel, world's biggest liar log, on REV 1313, which he believes is Revelations from the book in the Bible, Revelations 13-13. So I don't know, this is whether he's chosen to call this the beacon of hate, I'm not sure, but that's the headline on the story. This is a pretty strange message to be coming out in CW. So you may want to check this out. If you hear any CW there and try to decode it, see what the messages might be. Maybe it's, as he said, somebody just read about this 20 years ago and decided, hey, I'm going to reactivate something here and play with people's minds, as he said. So I like interesting stories like this, and challenges to try to figure out mysteries that are out there on the bands. So here's one that you can check out for yourself. Again, 10106.4 more or less in CW mode, and it is slow Morse code, he said, so shouldn't be too difficult to decode it or use some of the online decoding devices.
Definitely why shortwave is always interesting.
For sure.
So there's a highway to a DX party, Route 66 on the air via Southgate Amateur Radio News. The Citrus Belt Amateur Radio Club of San Bernardino in California, w6jbt.org, is once again hosting, and probably one of the most fun special event activities, the 22nd annual Route 66 on the air special event between 0 Zulu Saturday, September 11th and 23:59 Zulu on Sunday, September 19th. The purpose of this event is to offer amateur radio operators a fun way to relive the ride of their own memories of Route 66 and to celebrate the highway's 95th anniversary. The U.S. Highway 66, established in 1926, was the first major improved highway to link the West Coast with the nation's heartland. Through stories, songs, and TV shows, the highway came to symbolize the spirit of the freedom of the open road, inspiring many to see America. Look for the following stations. So there's 22 stations that are going to be on the air. They all have 3 letters. So it's all like Whiskey 6, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and so on. They're at different spots across the U.S., so California, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. So it goes from Whiskey 6 Alpha all the way to Whiskey 6 Victor. And QSL is each participating club will issue their own QSL cards commemorating this event. And so you can go to the website for the QSL information. And there's a certificate decal request that you can have. So there's more details about the event, certificate that is available. So this is going to be quite interesting. The website, w6jbt.org. All the information is there.
Yeah, I've actually driven Route 66. It starts around, I think it's St. Louis, Missouri. And it alternates now the old Route 66 with an interstate. I think it's Interstate 40, if I remember. I stand to be corrected on that. But when we went across, it was many, many years ago now. And it was sort of alternating between the new interstate and the old Route 66. But it does start there and goes all the way out to the West Coast. And we drove across a lot of it. Lots of songs about Route 66.
Yep.
There was an old TV show called Route 66. So yeah, this will be interesting. It's various amateur radio clubs that are running each of these stations across the length of the highway. So I think this will be a fun one to try to get as many of the stations as you can. It will have been started already. It started yesterday on Saturday, but it'll run through to next weekend. So you'll have plenty of time to go and track down these stations. We'll put a link up to all of this information for you.
So we have some ham radio contests coming up.
Yeah, there's quite a few things happening this coming weekend in addition to this special event and also the WBZ events. So lots of things on the ham bands. Some of the other contests, though, there's an ARRL 10 gigahertz and up contest, 600 local time, September the 18th to 23:59, sponsored by the American Radio Relay League. It's for North American amateurs to contact as many amateur stations in many different locations on the band's 10 gigahertz through light. So you've got to really have some experimental stuff going here. Contacts may be made using any mode, and we'll have the link for this and all of these other events coming up on our Facebook page.
There's the Texas QSO Party, 14 Zulu September 18th to 20 Zulu September 19th, sponsored by the Texas DX Society. It's all amateur bands are permitted except 60 and 30 and 17 and 12 meters. Modes, phone, CW, and digital.
Next, we have QRP Afield, 1500 to 2100 Zulu on September the 18th. This is sponsored by the QRP Club of New England. It's the major ham bands 160 through 10, no work bands. Any modes, so CW, SSB, AM, PSK, other digital modes, but QRP only.
There's the Washington State Salmon Run QSO Party, 16 Zulu September 18th to 23:59 Zulu September 19th. Bands are 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, 6, and 2 meters. And phone, CW, and digital.
The New Jersey QSO Party is running as well, 1600 Zulu on the 18th to 03:59 September 19th. That's sponsored by the Burlington County Radio Club, 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters only. CW, digital, and phone modes permitted.
The New Hampshire QSO Party, 16 Zulu September 18th to 22 Zulu September 19th, sponsored by the Port City Amateur Radio Club. And, of course, 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, 6, and 2 meters. Interesting to see that they include the 6 and 2 meters on some of these. And it's phone, CW, and digital.
And finally, if you like RTTY, radio teletype, the North American Sprint RTTY, 0100 to 0400 Zulu, September 19th, sponsored by the National Contest Journal. It's on 80, 40, and 20 meters. And as I said, radio teletype only for that particular contest.
Lots of fun things to do, and we are out of time.
Yeah, unfortunately. Let us know how you make out in some of these events. This is going to be a really busy weekend coming up with all sorts of special things on the band. So there'll be a lot for you to check out if you're a ham operator or a shortwave listener. And we'd love to hear from you. You can email us radioreport@yahoo.com or post up messages through our Facebook group, International Radio Report. Have a great week, everybody. And remember, there are lots of different events and activities that are going on out there. We'd love to hear about any that you might be staging as well.
Yep.
So you can send us that any details along to us. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again next Sunday morning with our next edition of the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.